good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are tuning in for today's live or if you're watching the replay. I am Lauren Morrison. I am a certified expert business and leadership coach, and I'm here today kicking off our 20-day series on being in the room. So we are doing 20 days every single day right here at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. For the duration of January, we are going to be breaking down powerful tools that I use with executives, with leaders, with founders, with senior leaders in order to give you the tools and the leadership training that you require in order to step up in 2026, whether that is stepping up, launching into a new chapter for yourself, whether that is stepping up within your career, whether that is owning the spaces that you're in, or if it's reimagining new spaces for you to walk into. That's what we're going to be covering over the next 20 days. And I'm really excited to start things off today talking about leading and communicating with clarity. This is such a big area for so many leaders and for individuals as well. The things that we're going to talk about today, the tools that I'm going to give you today, I need to assure you of this. This was given to me as a leadership tool, and it is promoted as a leadership tool. But what I have noticed and observed is that using this tool in all aspects of life, whether that is in parenting, whether that is in relationships, whether that is in friendships, has been a phenomenal game changer in helping myself and my clients to have more powerful, more constructive conversations to increase their assertiveness, but doing so in a way that is respectful, doing so in a way that actually gets results as well. I actually used this tool that I'm going to be going with you today. We used it with my son over the weekend because he was going through something with a teacher where he wanted to negotiate for a higher grade due to something that he thought was a misunderstanding. So he was sitting there and jumbled up in his thoughts, and we sat down and we explored his thoughts using this tool, where by the end of it, after about 10 minutes, he was so clear on what it was he wanted. He was so clear on how he was going to position it, and he was able to go and draft his speaking notes to take into the classroom today to have that chat with his teacher. So like I said, everybody has access to leadership tools. Are not just about whether or not you are leading actual people. Leadership tools are all about how you lead self as well. All right, so let's do that. Let's do some waves to see where people are coming in from. So why don't we do this? Let's say hello. Tell me where you're coming in from and what you're excited for in this live today. And we will get things kicked off. Want to know where you're coming in from? Close my door. Now, this session is going to be interactive, which means that I highly, highly recommend that you grab yourself a pen and paper as you're going through this, because I'm going to give you an opportunity, or you can take this opportunity afterwards, take some notes from this live, and then take some space to think about something that you are going through right now, whether that is a conflict that you're having with someone, a conversation that you want to have, but maybe you're avoiding because you aren't necessarily sure how to approach it. Maybe it's just a moment where you're pissed off about something and you haven't yet figured out how to process it in order for you to move forward. I want you to take a second and think about what that is right for you right now, because this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an opportunity to start to apply this tool to that situation to see if it brings you some clarity. Okay? All right. All right. So, hey, Erica, thank you for joining us. Okay, so here we go. Let's talk a little bit more about why we have the most powerful reasons for using this tool, like I said, is to provide with clarity. Now, if you are going to communicate with clarity, now this is really important. If you have intentions to communicate with clarity, there is a fundamental truth that you need to accept right here and right now. And that fundamental truth is that there is no truth. Hey, Layla, thank you for joining. The fundamental truth is that there is no truth. Here's what I mean by that. So I once read a book called, what was it called? The Diamond Cutter, and I can't remember the author's name. But The Diamond Cutter was all about this man who was really ingrained in Tibetan Buddhist practices. And what he did was he took those Buddhist practices and he applied them to building a business. And he was able to build a multi-billion-dollar diamond business based on these Tibetan Buddhist practices. Now, when you think about Tibetan Buddhism, like you think about someone who's very Zen, who's very like, at peace or whatever it is, maybe even like passive. When we think about business, though, it's almost like this juxtaposition because we think of it as being aggressive. We think of it as being like, fast paced and moving. So how do these two practices come together? One of the concepts that came from this book that I thought was really powerful was he mentioned that the perfect diamond, I'm going to pretend to draw a diamond here. Oh, good job, Lauren. He was talking about diamonds and how the perfect diamond is you can see right through it, which means that the perfect diamond is empty. He applied that concept to stating that everything in this world is empty, meaning that there is no such thing as good, there is no such thing as bad, there is no such thing as right, there is no such thing as wrong. All of that is perspective. So when we're thinking about conflict, going into conflict, we usually have a position, and I'm mostly guilty for this, having the position of being right while the other person is wrong. And what we do when we enter into conflict often, or when we want to communicate a message, is we frame it as we're trying to convince the other person of us being right? Yes. Now, not to say that that's not an effective tool, but this is kind of a shift because it's about going into conversations not from a competitive point of view, but from a learning perspective. And learning means that we accept that maybe my position isn't necessarily right. Maybe there is another perspective. And maybe this thing that I know to be unequivocally true, there is room for other understanding to inform me of someone else's position. Now, all that to say is that it doesn't mean that you can't think that you're right. It doesn't mean that you can't think that the other person is wrong. But accepting that you are only right from your perspective and they are only wrong from your perspective. That this thing that you are thinking of as whether it's good or bad is only good from your perspective. And it's only bad from someone else's perspective. And the reason is because everything in this world, we all experience it completely differently. Meaning, like, let's just say, for example, because when we thought about this concept of everything is empty, I thought about I'm like, there must be something that we all universally can agree is good or bad. Universally, we must be able to think of something. And maybe if you could think of something in the chat right now, what is one thing in this world that we all universally can believe is good or is bad? One of the things that I thought about to myself was I'm like, oh, a pillow. A pillow must be good. No one can disagree with the fact that a pillow is a good thing because a pillow is soft. We use it for comfort. We use it to go to sleep. We associate it with rest. But a pillow can also be used as a weapon. So that's what I mean when I say there's no such thing as necessarily universal truth around good or bad. And if you can think of something, I'm more than happy to hear it. But it comes from someone's perspective, meaning that how I view the world, how I view a situation is informed by my beliefs, by my values, and by my experiences. Similarly, the other person on the other side has their own set of unique values, experiences, emotions, and beliefs, right? So what makes sense for you might make sense for them. There is no such thing as universal truth. There's only my perspective, my truth, your truth, and how we agree to move forward based on that understanding of that information. Okay, so without further ado, let's talk a little bit about, I should have brought a, I don't even know. We're going to do this. Let's talk a little bit about the tool that we're going to explore today. Now, the tool that we use to explore and communicate with clarity is called the Experience Cube. And this Experience Cube was developed by a psychologist by the name of Gervase Busch. He's actually a Canadian professor in Vancouver. Now, when the reason that this tool was developed was to help people to approach situations holding this truth that they have a unique perspective, that they have, that just because two people can encounter the same thing, I can view it one way, another person can view it the other way, and with positive intention, which means that we're going into this conversation from a learning perspective. We're going into this conversation with positive intention. This tool in leadership has been used to deliver feedback, to navigate difficult conversations, and we even call it therapy in a cube, because it even is the ability to take something that you are to process something that you are working through and bring clarity to yourself, not only around what the experience is, but most importantly, what it is that you want. So I'm going to break down the cube for you here. Okay, so here's the square quadrant. In this quadrant, and the way that okay, so the quadrants go OT. This is backwards for you, but just bear with me here. EWF. Now, the way that I have been taught this quadrant and the way that I've remembered it, it's the oh what the fuck quadrant. Okay, so this is something that this is a way, an acronym you can use to remember all the letters. And it's kind of a way for me in the moment where I'm having like a what the fuck just happened moment. It's a cue for me to break out this tool to get more clarity to my understanding. All right, so let's start with O. So you take something that you're going through right now. You take an experience and you break it down by these four things, starting with O. O is your observation. Now, your observation is something that is pure fact. And when I say pure fact, it means that there is no, like, we can both look at this same piece of information and agree that that is true, right? So, for example, it's something that a camera can pick up. It's something like a stenographer would capture if they were writing down your words. These are things that are observed. So, for example, right now you are observing that I am, what are you observing? You're observing that I'm speaking with my hands. Or, sorry, you're observing that I'm moving my hands. Now, your interpretation of that observation of Lauren's very expressive with her hands, Lauren's speaking with a lot of expression, that is your interpretation. The only thing that we can observe is the fact that as I am speaking, I am moving my hands. Do you got to get the subtle difference? Saying I am observing that Lauren is excited. That's your interpretation. You can notice that when I'm speaking, my eyebrows raise. That is an observation, and you can interpret that eyebrow raising as excitement. But the only thing that we can agree on is an observation. Now think of it as if you were going to give evidence to a judge to say, this is a fact, this is a report, this is an eyewitness account, whatever it is, that's what this is. Now this is important that we distinguish what an observation is and what an observation is not. Because the next part we're going to go to is the thought. Now, the thought is the assumption or the judgment that you give to an observation. So, like we talked about before, like I'm observing that Lauren's speaking with a lot of authority. That's not an observation, right? Like that is your thought of how I am speaking. Now, again, putting it to your own situations as well, that's the first part to actually breaking down, because what's important about just pulling out the thought is this is where this is fact and this is where this is subjective. When we get into the thought, it's subjective, which means that right away you're acknowledging the thought is not universal truth. It is your truth, right? Now, it's important to understand your truth, but it's also important that you understand that it is uniquely yours, okay? These thoughts, these judgments, these assumptions are yours. The next part we're going to go into is the F. The F is for feelings. Now, the F is something that gets missed time and time and time again when we're having conversations. Hey, Bhavna, nice to see you. The F is something that we miss time and time again because the F is for the word feeling. Now, feeling means that we are communicating an emotion word. And it's so important, especially in professional conversations that we do not skip this part, because the F gives you context. It tells someone the so what of it, right? Like, and it's not I feel like or I feel that, because if you say I feel like or I feel that, you are not expressing a feeling, you are expressing a thought, a judgment, an assumption, a belief, right? See the difference? And that's an important difference, because a lot of times people get upset when other people believe that their feelings are wrong. Now, your feelings can never be wrong. They're inevitable. They can be challenged, they can be explored, but they can't be wrong. Your thoughts, your judgments, and assumptions absolutely can be, right? Or they have the opportunity for someone else's interpretation. It's not a truth. So a feeling is a word like, I feel proud. Hey, Charmaine from Toronto. Hey, Charmaine from Toronto. I know you, Charmaine. I feel proud. I feel annoyed. I feel vulnerable. I feel anxious. I feel disrespected. I feel disappointed. These words help the other person and you to understand the so what of it all. Okay, you've got this observation, you've got a thought. So what? What's the impact? The F word is the impact. And it helps someone to understand, why do I need to care about this? And it helps you understand why you need to care about this. So that's the feeling. And then we get to the want. Now the want is something that many people miss in conjunction with the feelings. We are actually not very good at articulating what we want. What we're very good at doing is talking about what we don't like, what we don't want, what didn't happen the way that we wanted it to, but we don't actually clearly understand what do we want. And this is why this tool is so powerful. If you are looking to increase your assertiveness, this is the tool that is powerful for you, because assertiveness means that you clearly understand and are able to articulate what it is you want in a respectful manner. But if you do not take the time to understand what this is, then your communications are going to be messy. Now, when most people stay in this observation thought area, this part of the quadrant. Most people stay up here. I think, I saw, I did, I that, blah, blah, blah. I went into this meeting. This person was being a jerk. They just kept talking over me. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. This is bullshit. I don't know why I work for this company anymore. This is stupid, blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever the case is. This is where we spend a lot of our time. When you spend all of your time in this top quadrant, here's what you're doing. You are complaining. You're complaining. This is not productive. When you move into the lower parts of the quadrant, this is where you are leading. Complaining, leading, okay? Complaining, leading, because this moves your complaint into productivity. So when you move into your thoughts, your feelings, to understand why this matters, then you move into your want to be able to clearly articulate your desires, your outcomes. I want to be respected better. I want to have more opportunities for visibility. I want to be promoted to the next level. I want to advocate for more money in this deal. When you do that, this is where you are leading and now resulting in productive action. Okay? So let's take this for example, because this is a lot for you. Okay. Simple example, and I'll show you how this happened for me. I'm trying to think of an example. I'll just use like a day-to-day example. Day-to-day example. I went out to dinner with my family a few months ago, and we were sitting out to dinner, and my husband that day I got a flat tire. At dinner, my husband asked me, "What did you drive over?" My response to him was, "What do you mean, what did I drive over? What did you think that I did? That I automatically why would I even know that?" My immediate reaction was anger. I started yelling raising my voice in the restaurant, telling him about himself, right? And then it basically didn't go very well at all. Later on, I came back home and I sat down and I was like, okay, I had a bit of an oh, what the fuck moment. So what just happened? What did I actually observe? What I observed was him saying to me in a restaurant, "What did you run over?" That's what he said. What did you run over to get a flat tire? What I thought was he was undermining me. What I thought was that he was assuming that I lacked good judgment in my driving, and that I may have intentionally been careless with my driving as I was running through the streets and maybe like trying to overcome and trying to actually hit nails that were standing up. What that made me feel was inferior. It made me feel disrespected. It made me feel annoyed and angry. And what I wanted was for him, especially was for him and for my children who were present, to see me as someone who was competent and respected. So now I can go and have that conversation with my husband to say, like, here's what you said, here's what it made me think, here's what I wanted, what I felt, and what I really want is for you to understand where I was coming from on why I blew up the way that I did. And what I want is for you to be mindful or careful of, you know, some of these comments when we're having conversations in front of the kids. This is a much more productive conversation than what we had in that restaurant. And notice it came after the fact. If you think about it from a work context, because, you know, let's just say, for example, you have an employee who's constantly coming in late, right? The employee is constantly coming in late and you're frustrated and you're annoyed because this is a person who you are like, you don't want to have to fire, right? You don't want to have to take disciplinary actions because you like this person. So what do we say? We go to the observation. The observation is, I noticed that 5 times out of this week, you've been showing up beyond the 9 a.m. start time, for example. That's got to be able to be true. We need to be able to say that that person needs to be able to agree that, yes, that is what has happened, which makes me think that you are not taking this job very seriously and you are not managing your time properly to prioritize the work that's going here. And how that makes me feel, and I feel worried about it because companies are talking about cutting and they're going to be looking at these factors for performance. And I'm worried that your good work is going to get overlooked by the fact that you are constantly showing up late, that you are showing up late. And so what I want is to better understand what it is that is driving you to be late and what we can do and what you will do to ensure that you come back on time. Soft example, but an example to show how we can actually use this tool to deliver effective feedback as well, to let someone know how we feel. And I'm not just talking about the complicated stuff, I'm also talking about the positive stuff. See, when we often give people feedback, we often think that we're really good at giving people feedback because we're constantly telling people, good job, or thanks so much for that. That's not effective feedback because it's not specific, it's not actionable. So the next time you are going to let somebody know that you actually appreciate something that they've done, follow this. Hey, I saw in that meeting that you spoke up more than I normally see you speaking, which makes me think that you're finding your confidence and you're finding your voice in this space. And that makes me feel really proud of you. Makes me feel really proud. And what I want to see you continue to challenge and stretch yourself into more of those positions, right? You kind of get where I'm saying. Use this with your kids, use this with your husband, but you can see how much more impactful that type of feedback is, or that conversation is, over saying to someone, hey, great job on that meeting. Hey, great job on that report. Hey, thanks so much for doing that. What did I observe? What did it make me think? How did it make me feel? And what do I want to see next? Okay? So I want you to write this down for yourself, this oh, what the fuck cube. And take a situation that you've got going on right now. So think about maybe a conflict that you're in. Maybe thinking about something that you're not happy with. Maybe it's something at work. Maybe it's something in your personal life. What is it that is currently causing you some level of resentment, some level of dissatisfaction, and there's a conversation that you're not having about it? And I want you to think to yourself, just go through each of these quadrants. What are you observing? What are you observing? Yeah, I'll do it for you right now. Honey vibes. What are you observing? What about that situation? And just write these things down so you can challenge yourself. What can we actually say that is actually true? What was said? What could be recorded? What is actually true? What do I think about it? What are some of the judgments and thoughts that I'm applying to what I'm noticing? How is it making me feel? Really, using feeling words. Do I feel resentful? Is it making me feel confused? Is it making me feel anxious? What is it making me feel? And then if I was going to resolve those feelings, what do I want? What do I want? Not what I don't want, not what I don't like, but what do I want? Because if you don't know how to articulate what you want, this is where we tend to mount resentment on others, on ourselves, on our workplaces. Because when we articulating the want is uncomfortable. Articulating the want means that you're putting yourself at risk. For nonviolent communication is a great call out. You're putting yourself at risk for potentially not getting it. You're putting yourself at risk for someone potentially saying to you, you don't deserve it, which is why we avoid saying it. And what we hope is that we could just tell people what we think and feel, and they'll fill in the gap for us on the want. They will try to figure out what we want. I have this with my husband all the time where we'll get into an argument and I'll say, well, what do you want to be different? And he'll say, I shouldn't have to tell you, Lauren. I shouldn't have to tell you what I want. You should just know. That you should just know piece of it, that is what breeds resentment. The reason why it's easier for him to say you should just know is because he associates asking for what he wants potentially as begging, forcing, like it weakens his position. But when really it allows him to communicate with authority. Because when you are communicating to higher levels of executives, what do you start with? You start with the executive ask. People don't have time to sit there and figure out what it is that you want. They want to know, what do you want from me? What is it that you need from me? Okay, I understand the problem. What do you want me to do? Everyone is interested in this W because it makes their cognitive job a lot easier. So take some real time to actually figure out what this is, and you are going to find that your assertiveness will go up, your respect will go up, and you're going to move further faster because you're going to be able to advocate more clearly for what it is that you want in a non-offensive, in a respectful way. Yes, absolutely. Great question. Can we reverse engineer it? You can absolutely reverse engineer it. I've often started this with, what do you want to be different? What do you want to be different from where you are today? What is it that if you're sitting in something, you're like, I want something to be different. I want to make more money. This is how we're all starting in the new year. I want to make more money, right? In 2026, let's just say. I want to get a new job. I want to get promoted in 2026. How do I currently feel right now? Well, I feel undermined. I feel this. I feel worried. I feel anxious. Well, what are some of those thoughts that are driving those feelings? The thinking that I'm not moving ahead, the thinking that the assumption that I'm not getting a lot of visibility. What are those observations that support those thoughts? And then reverse engineering it from there will kind of help you to narrow in on where you can pinpoint the actual problem to go and attack the next action for solution. All right. I hope that answers your question. A lot of times we start with the feeling. I start with the feeling word a lot as well. Starting with the feeling to say, like, I'm feeling nervous. I don't know why I'm feeling nervous. What am I thinking that's causing me to feel nervous? What am I observing that's acting on those thoughts? And then what do I want? So yes, you can reverse engineer from any point in this. I just usually recommend that when you are first getting started with the tool, to start with your observations, go to thoughts, feelings, and wants. just as you kind of get to practice. And use this tool to prepare yourself for the next big conversation you want to have. Use this tool to make sense of an experience that you're currently having. Use this tool with a child in your home when they kind of come to you with a level of frustration or something. Walk them through this, because like I said, I used it with my son on the weekend, and he left that conversation with so much more clarity and confidence. And that's the other thing about this. It's such a huge confidence booster when you know you are going into a conversation with clarity, with backup, right? And with an openness to learn the other person's perspective as well. Because now we don't need to take things necessarily so personally. Like, it's not necessarily, my husband isn't an asshole because he asked me what I rolled over. My interpretation or judgment or thought, because if he were to have done this cube, he would have started with the observation, I asked Lauren what she ran over, because I thought that maybe there was a situation that she knew about that we could potentially plan to avoid, right? So he and he had the same words, but we had different things be true about the words that were said. So going into it with not necessarily with that notion of like, I'm coming in with my experience. I want the other person's feedback. I want the other person's perspective. And then I want us to leave this conversation with an alignment on how we're going to move forward. All right. Awesome. We are going to be now, again, this week is all about that emotional mastery piece. So we are going to be, and which is why I said, let's keep talking about this F word here. This F word is going to be huge as we move through this week, because like I said before, feelings are driving 80 to 90% of our decisions, of our actions, especially in business and professional realms. And if we do not acknowledge that this is running the show, then we are allowing it to run the show on our behalf. So continuing tomorrow, I'll be posting this live, but continuing tomorrow, we're going to build up on how better understanding your emotional mastery and your emotional intelligence is what's going to change the game for you in 2026. Help you to lead and scale your impact, scale your business, scale your leadership. All right. All right. Thank you all for showing up today. Just some quick CTAs. Make sure you tune in for the rest of the week. We're coming in at 9 o'clock a.m. PST, 12 p.m. EST. We're going to go for about 30 minutes. And if you are interested, like I said, the things that we're going to be talking about over the next 20 weeks, a lot of this stuff can be found in my book, Be in the Room. It is currently on sale, pre-order on Amazon. You can go to Amazon, get the link, make sure you get the book, because it's going to help you dive in even deeper. And if you are looking for more in-depth one-on-one applications of anything that we talk about, you can always hit up my website, beintheroomcoaching.com, and you can register to do a private intensive one-on-one with me. This is a 90-minute intensive that I give completely complimentary, because I know the power of coaching. And I have experienced the power of coaching in leadership capacities, and it has completely changed my life. I'm constantly, and now I'm in a position where I'm able to give those tools to others. But oftentimes, the what I had access to with funding from my company doesn't necessarily get given to everyone. So I want to make sure that I make as much of this information, these opportunities, that you get to experience coaching, even if you're not in a place where it has been given to you. Okay. All right. We will chat with you soon. See you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Bye. Oh, we'll see you soon.